Hello, everyone. Hello, Paul.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm not too bad. I'm in a really good mood. Welcome,
Excellent.
everybody, to episode 19 of Studio 8.1, where I talk to the telemedia maestro, the wordsmith, Paul Skeldon. He's the editor-in-chief of all of our telemedia publications, and that's anything to do with mobile payments, mobile marketing, content, value-added services, traffic, affiliate marketing, anything really to do with getting consumers, connected consumers, interacting with propositions from merchants, which involves things like great digital content, premium services, information, edutainment, you name it. Paul writes about it. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm good with that introduction. It's a wonder I have any time to do anything at all.
Exactly. And we don't have much time because I know that it seems as though there seems to be a lot of activity in the market.
A lot going on this week. Yep. Everyone is busy.
It is. So what we're going to do, as usual, we're going to race through the top 4 stories that Paul has picked out that he would like to go into a little bit more detail about. And you can obviously read all of this on telemediaonline.co.uk, and there will be all the relevant links to reports, surveys, and anything else that we reference during the next 20-25 minutes. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about. First story is an SMS story, and we're talking about how click to buy is being integrated with SMS, and perhaps taking on some of the benefits of RCS, which I know we have been going on about for quite a few months now. We're then going to talk about how BT is working with Infobip to add WhatsApp, RCS, and Facebook Messenger to their business comms offering. So they are a big story with a big network jumping into what could possibly be described as a CPaaS business model, Paul, maybe. Well, we'll talk about that. The third thing is a really interesting company that we talked about, I think, middle of last year, World Mobile, who are looking to kind of connect the unconnected in all sorts of weird and wonderful places in some really innovative ways. But you might be surprised to find out that some of the most unconnected people are in the good old US of A. And that was an interesting story. And finally, we're going to follow up on the news that we broke last week about PSA, the UK regulator, being absorbed into Ofcom, and we've got some feedback on what the industry thinks about that. So, Paul, thank you very much for highlighting these stories. As I say, we found the whole thing very interesting, actually. And the first one is mobile marketing offering adds innovative click-to-buy feature to SMS. And this is about a company called Yotpo. Not easy to say. And they're an e-commerce marketing platform that helps brands strengthen their relationships with consumers. And they've launched the first of its kind feature, which to its SMS bump offering. And this is click to buy, which will enable advanced personalization through text messaging. So give us a little bit of an insight into this, and why did you pick this one out, Paul?
Well, this is interesting, I think, because it's SMS sort of offering the ability to do sort of click to buy. And with SMS, it's becoming increasingly a sort of important marketing tool, but not many people have really tried to do anything with it to actually make it sort of transactional, or at least part of the transaction process. It's usually largely a way to remind people to do things, or push them possibly to a website, or largely just to keep them appraised of orders they've already made and where they are. But the people at Yotpo, who have acquired a company called SMS Bump some time ago, fully integrated it into their SMS marketing platform, which is a bit meh, really. However, part of this, they are offering brands who use their service as a marketing tool the ability to add a click to buy feature to SMS. Now, the pitch really is at sort of direct-to-consumer brands who are trying to sort of do e-commerce and m-commerce to sell stuff, who are competing with the likes of Amazon and people like that. But it's interesting from a telemedia point of view, because it's sort of doing one of the key things that RCS has long said that is an advantage it has over good old-fashioned text messaging. Now, I've delved around a bit into this, trying to work out how it works. It seems to just push you to a payment page. However, it is very slick.
Okay.
So I don't think it doesn't appear that you're buying directly out of the text message as such, like you might do with RCS. However, it is pretty, it's a pretty innovative way of using SMS. And as Michael Saber, the president of Alt Fragrances, a company that's been trialing it, sort of, he reckons that it really is something transformative for particularly smaller businesses looking to do E and M commerce. It's interesting, I think, because it's a sort of reboot of SMS in a way at a time when we're trying to get RCS off the ground. One of its sort of key driving things being that you can buy from it.
No, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, the funny thing is, that being an old timer, I generally find that I'm baffled by the science and technology that we are regularly talking about, or pretending to know what we pretending to know what we're talking about. And there's a lot of stuff in here about sort of personalization, and I kind of assumed that a lot of this stuff was sort of part of the back end, and in my little brain I sort of thought, well, surely it's just about having a really clever Excel spreadsheet with all of your subscriber numbers, and then you just filter in, because they're talking a lot about personalization with this, weren't they? Making sure that the beauty of it is you get an offering which is very specific to that particular caller ID, so you can obviously tailor your marketing message to that consumer. Therefore, you're going to expect them to be more likely to buy, and then you give them a link, which we've been, none of us particularly new to links in text messages, but as you say, I haven't tested it, but I guess it really is still just a link. But if it takes you to
yes, but I think sort of coupled with what Yotpo already does, which is sort of personalized sort of marketing, part of which is through SMS, I think it becomes quite a powerful thing that you're getting not only a sort of text message that's sort of relevant marketing about stuff you might be interested in, but it's also giving you a really seamless way to buy, which is kind of the sort of what all marketing, digital marketing is about and has been about, but it's never really sort of been particularly used in SMS. SMS has largely been there as sort of blanket sort of, stuff, or for sort of follow-ups and where is my order sort of things. So this interesting, I think, because I think that a lot of people understand SMS both on the sort of business side and as consumers. You think if you can make SMS a really handy, personalized, transactionable marketing channel, then why do you need any of the others?
No, I mean, I think it's a really interesting time for anyone involved in digital marketing, particularly for value-added services and telemedia services. And as you know, I spent some time at the affiliate show in Tulum a few weeks ago, and also I had the pleasure of hanging out with some of the dating guys in Monaco 2 weekends ago. And obviously marketing and particularly mobile marketing was something that came up a lot in our conversations. And it's very obvious that there's still so much for them to sort of benefit from. And meanwhile, the industry is kind of really refining its offering, and I can see things like this and RCS and the next story as well as a good example of that. And I think the kind of marketing landscape is really, really exciting, and there's no question that mobile marketing, mobile advertising, and the way it fits in with commerce and omnichannel messaging is going to be something that will be high on the agenda at World Telemedia, 19th, 21st of October. Get your tickets now. Early bird offers are still available. And that does bring us really nicely onto the second story, which is about the mighty Infobip, who were in the news a lot during lockdown. The PR machine was working overtime, and this time they're partnering with BT to enhance customer experience offering for businesses in the UK. And as I alluded to earlier, Paul, I mean, is this, well, you can talk a little bit more about it, but this sounded like sort of BT sort of buying into the CPaaS model?
Yes, absolutely. They're essentially reselling Infobip's CPaaS services. What I thought was interesting about it is that one, BT, which obviously has an awful lot of business customers, particularly in the UK, has felt the need to add things like RCS and Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp to what it offers business customers as communications channels, and as Robert Jones, head of messaging at BT, says customers expect to be able to interact with brands quickly, seamlessly, and on the channel of their choice. You think
we've heard that before,
and really
we?
interesting, but we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years now.
He nicked that quote from someone else, I'm sure.
Well, I think from like hundreds of people over the past few years. I'm surprised that it's sort of taken this long for someone as big as BT to do this. On the flip side of that, I think it does show that the way consumers want to interact with businesses is very different to what it was a couple of years ago. It isn't enough just to offer them a telephone number, an email address, and a call center and all that sort of caboodle. What they actually want is to use the channels they already use to sort of do everything else. So they want WhatsApp, they want SMS, they want Facebook Messenger, and they don't know it yet, but they might want RCS also, which has been added to this as well. So yeah, it was more of a kind of flagging this up that one, we've been saying this for ages. Two, BT, I'm surprised has finally sort of decided to do this, and three, it is marks a massive shift in how consumers want to interact with businesses, and businesses are clearly banging on BT's door, going, "What gives? We want, we need these things. Help." Yeah, Infobit obviously has all these as a service that it can sort of help to deliver through BT for BT's customers. So yeah, good win for Infobit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this is also kind of an interesting example of how we genuinely might be in the throes of a sort of a real change in the mood music around operators. And I think, we've talked about over the years, how perhaps MNOs miss the opportunity to become banks, and then perhaps they miss the opportunity, or a lot of them miss the opportunity to become broadcasters, though not necessarily in BT's case. But we're constantly going on about MNOs need to get on this, otherwise they're just going to be dumb pipes. It's an old adage. And I just thought this is kind of interesting example. I was glad that you said that it was kind of them buying into the CPaaS model, where you actually see an operator jumping onto some, a new technological model quite quickly. And so, and I feel as though that's, well, it linked actually very nicely to the very excellent Avena Fraud Observer newsletter, which came out this very day. And they were reporting back from the big Telecom Africa, or was it Telecom Asia? I'm not sure, or whatever, one of the big shows. And David Lotvey commented that all top telco executives agree fintech, or the point being diversification, is the future for them. And he said, and he makes the point, and again, this is all, you could almost have said this 25 years ago when deregulation was around. Telcos have everything they need to become the biggest, in this case fintechs, in the world. They have everything they need to succeed: a huge network, consumer data, KYC, bank accounts, direct access to cell phones, and a payment method with incredible conversion rates, one-click payment. And I mean, in essence, with all those assets, why they're not in fintech, why they're not in payments, why they're not in content delivery, why they're not in messaging is baffling, really. And I feel as though maybe that this is an example of where there's a shift in the sands, and perhaps we could really be seeing because it's not going to be long before, if these successful models, others will follow, and they'll follow pretty quickly, I think, especially because you can tap into CPaaS so easily.
The answer to your question is that MNOs are big businesses that are very siloed. So they have a payments part, and they have a messaging part, and they have a possibly a sort of putative kind of banking part, but they don't really talk to each other. And I think this move with Infobip to offer the kind of messaging channels that consumers want is a great first step. It needs to all come together. Sort of, back to the story we were just talking about with Yotpo and the sort of click to buy and SMS. They need to have that joined up thinking that messaging is a way of marketing, but marketing is also can be a direct means of purchasing and a follow up and sort of upselling and all those sorts of things. And the pieces aren't there, I don't feel, just yet, but I think there are a lot of smaller companies like Yotpo, like Infobip, who have all these bits, and I think MNOs won't become dumb pipes, but they might well be sort of, reselling other people's things, I think.
Either way, I think it makes for an exciting network infrastructure on which the value-added services, premium content, premium digital services, whatever you want to call it, it's a very exciting platform and a network on which that sits. And all that's happening is, marketing and marketing channels are getting better, payment methods are becoming more diverse. And more effective.
One thing that's also interesting that we haven't covered yet, which I'm planning to do later this week, is that fintechs, meanwhile, are starting to offer their financial products to retailers and to marketing service providers, so that they can build in the things like buy now, pay later, or other ways of financing stuff as part of the service they offer. The bank side of it's not really the point. It's something that the brand will offer.
Yeah,
I think that's while the network operators are sort of scrabbling around adding messaging channels and looking at how they could be fintechs meanwhile have moved on and are now getting in with the marketing people. So it's a very fluid place. So I think, yes, we are going to see this different kind of network. I think we're going to see a very different sort of way of who's doing what in this kind of marketing and sales channel between customers and brands.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's talk about a new kid on the block in the MNO world. And as I mentioned earlier, World Mobile, really interesting company. Story come from them this week. Blockchain-based MNO World Mobile expands into US to tap into 13 states with no internet access. I ought to just clarify this, and I assume that's their headline, right? It isn't.
No, I wrote that.
Okay,
because it's the equivalent of 13 US states of people. There aren't 13 states with no internet access.
Yes. So it's the household equivalent of 13 states. I think it's probably
yes. I thought, this is people would click on this if they thought there were 13 states with.
Exactly. So the story reads expansion into the United States, where they're going to be. There are 27.6. I couldn't believe this. 27.6 million households still don't have internet access, and 30% of landmass lacks cellular coverage, which is astonishing. I know it's a big country, but come on. And this highlights the next stage in the rapid development of this British-based company, which is aiming to revolutionize connectivity in sub-Saharan Africa and throughout the world. And as I say, we talked about these guys probably this time last year. They've got some really interesting ways of creating mobile networks using balloons and solar power and all sorts of stuff. They focused, if I remember rightly, in Africa. Like Zanzibar was one of their first launches,
and Pakistan.
And so I was expecting, when I heard about, I was expecting another kind of outback.
So was I.
And wallop. They've decided the US needs them to come to the rescue. So obviously, it's an interesting story in that it's another huge amount of people getting connected, and obviously connected people are the secret to telemedia companies being able to make money and provide services, valuable services to these connected customers. Thoughts on this one, mate?
Well, yes, much like you, I follow World Mobile because we've done stuff about them. I would really like the idea that they launched in Zanzibar, which is a sort of a place I don't think I've ever written about in my sort of career as a journalist, and they were doing it in Zanzibar with balloons. So I was sort of thinking, this is an interesting company. I saw that they were rolling out and expanding. Like you, I thought, where's it going to be? It's going to be somewhere quite sort of exotic. No, it's America, because there's such a large amount of people don't have internet access, and it blew my mind, I have to say. And nearly 30 million households without it. And this is what a great opportunity. Why has no one else spotted this? Then thinking about it, you think this is partly, I think, possibly why things like Starlink and these satellite-based services like that Elon Musk's rolling out and others are doing it too. It's partly what's driving that, I think, is that even in their US domestic market, there is there's only 90% internet coverage. However, rather than launching satellites and all the millions and millions of dollars that costs, this is sort of a network of low altitude balloons. You think this has got success, I think, written all over it. Certainly in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama.
It's a Breaking Bad country.
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, I mean, interestingly, I mean, I suspect this year, I mean, I was talking to our friends over in the US, the mighty Twistbox, who have been around for a very long time, big digital entertainment, mobile digital entertainment company, making a very welcome return back to world telemedia. Because obviously last year there were still some issues with US Euro travel. And I mean, I guess for companies like that, and I suspect we're going to see a lot more US telemedia companies getting involved this year. And I mean, that's certainly something I'm going to be talking to them about, because, you know, to have an extra 27.6 million people turn up on your back doorstep or your front doorstep, depending on how you look at it, from a content sales services point of view, is pretty exciting. I think there was a stat that said something that like this in itself would add something like 1.5% to the overall GDP of the US. Is that right?
Yes, that's in there somewhere. It is 1.4% of the country's GDP,
which is astonishing, really.
It's estimated that a 10% increase in households connected to the internet can add 1.4% to the country's GDP.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, I guess in conclusion, I mean, any stories like that with regards to the global population getting connected and having phones in their hands and ready to do all the things that being connected with a phone in your hand allows you to do, is great news for the telemedia business. And that means great news for mobile messaging and marketing companies, merchants, brands, content providers, and value-added service providers. And that's something that we will continue to report on. And I guess if you're looking for emerging markets or emerging market opportunities, or emerging markets within existing markets, then these are the kinds of stories you should be following, because boy, oh boy, does that mean that you've got a whole bunch of new consumers ready and willing, and obviously new to the joys of being able to be entertained and buy stuff using their mobile phones. So, you know, I guess you'd expect them to be even more excited than perhaps people that are a bit more long in the tooth. So that's a good news story. Market's growing. Lovely. Thank you for that. Yeah, and finally, perhaps not quite so much in line with the market growing, because I know that there's been a lot of talk about how perhaps over zealous regulation in the UK has kind of suppressed the market a little bit. So we were interested last week to hear about the PSA, who is the specific regulator for premium mobile payments and services, they've decided to absorb that into Ofcom, and we have now got a response from some of the industry luminaries. I'll just give you the headline. The UK PRS industry has tentatively welcomed the plan to fold PRS regulator, the Phone Paid Services Authority, into Ofcom from late 2023. And you've been in touch with AIM, I think, haven't you, to get their views on that?
Yes, absolutely. I just we covered this in our last podcast just as the story happened. I think that very day, that morning, it had happened. So got some feedback, but it was too late for the last podcast. Thought it was worth maybe just doing a quick follow up on it. It's broadly been welcomed by the industry body AIM. It took them and I think everyone else by surprise. No one seems to have been aware that this was even going to happen. Interestingly, AIM are going to continue to work with their members to sort of, work out what this transition means and guide them through it. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Compliance monitoring firm MCP were quite vocal about how this vindicates sort of self-regulation and, the strides made in the industry by using companies like MCP and MPLO, etc., has made this sort of move possible. Also, I think it does for our non-UK viewers. It possibly is a interesting thing to watch as to what happens with regulation here in the UK of premium rate services, because it may well have an impact then on how these services are regulated elsewhere. What I still don't know is whether this means that I think everyone's kind of quite happy that it's happened. It seems to be that regulation, has worked so well that it's been folded into Ofcom. It's just sort of part of that. I do wonder, though, whether being part of Ofcom will make it sort of perhaps more regulated. Is it going to come under greater scrutiny? or as many people suggest, the industry has moved on so much that it doesn't need the kind of regulation it had before, and a lot of the facets of the telemedia industry are now covered by other regulations, because we don't quite do the same things that we used to do sort of 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So while industry welcomes it, I wonder what it might actually mean in practice. That could this be a great thing, or could it be the dawn of a bigger sort of Ofcom, much more hardcore sort of regulation of these services? So yeah, I don't know. Anyone who has any views or answers on that, please do get in touch. I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think both David Ashman from MCP, the wonderful MCP, and Toby Padgett made similar points about how regulation can create a sort of boom and bust life cycle, which is obviously not very good for a sustainable market, which is what we all want. And they seem to suggest that they felt that this might be a move to sort of tackle that, and that hopefully a sustainable market is what we may be looking towards, you know, somewhere, a market where innovation is rewarded, and where you know, merchants and service providers are not frightened off by bringing services to market. So hopefully, you know, the mood music seems to be quite positive. That might just be because obviously they know Ofcom will be reading, and they want to make sure that when they have their first meeting that they don't say, well, I saw what you said about us. But yeah, I think fingers crossed. And you know, obviously, again, I guess in terms of regulation, it's not something that's ever far away from your desk. So I guess you'll be keeping a close eye on
absolutely. And like I say, it's not just about the UK, really. I think it does show that the industry has changed, you know, I think beyond recognition in many ways over the past decade. Particularly lately. And this move to dismantle like a specific regulator is indicative of that. Interested to see what comes next.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to wrap it up there. Short and sweet. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I thought that was four very interesting stories. It made a change for us not to just be talking about white papers and reports. So, I mean, I don't know. Absolutely. I guess Juniper and Mobile Squared and all the other guys have probably been on half term and just, you know, that's it.
Nice. But I try to pick out the ones that are interesting. So, you know, it doesn't matter to me where they come from. It's the interesting story they tell. But
you did do that. So I'm just going to remind everybody that next week, our friends at Mobile Ecosystem Forum and MEF are hosting a fantastic 2-day event at the Krasnopolski in Amsterdam on Tuesday, the 14th and the 15th. I was correct in my last vodcast to say that in fact registration is free. Not something I can advocate as a trade, but anyway, I'll be there. Paul won't be. He's going to be listening virtually. So
I can be in virtually. Yep.
Yeah. So if anyone's going to be in Amsterdam, please come say hello. Also, just a reminder that the early bird prices are available now for World Telemedia 2020. I can absolutely guarantee you that the next show on the 19th and 21st of October is going to be a humdinger, Paul. It's going to be honestly, I feel it in my waters. It's
I think you're right. I think it is going to be a belter. And,
it's definitely going to smash some records just based on the early bookings.
I'm looking forward to hearing all the things people have to say as well. I think we'll have get some really interesting stuff from it. So yes, looking forward to it already.
Yeah, no, me too. Already, I see there's been a really big increase in the number of content providers that have started to sign up. I feel like there's some real innovation in terms of what, you know, how many high quality services are now being developed. And so there's going to be some really interesting content and service about in the VAS services on display in Marbella. So more news about that later. Please, if you're interested in getting involved in the conference sessions, now's the time to start talking about that with us. And if you've got a good story to tell, we'd like to hear it. Also, as I said, the floor plan is now open. So if you want some permanent meeting space and you don't want to be stuck in the crowds, hoping to bump into the right people, and you can have your own permanent space, give me a call, drop me an email. That's it for now. I will see you after Amsterdam. I'll report back on that one.
Yeah, look forward to hearing about that next time.
Okay. So until then, thank you very much for watching, and thanks for your time, mate. Really appreciate that.
You too. Good to see you.
See you
Good
later.
to see everybody else who's watching.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.